how's it going, everybody? Welcome to episode number 40 of the Debt Free Dad podcast. So let me ask you a question. Do you ever feel like no matter how much money you make, it just isn't enough? You know, it seems like every time we turn around, there's something bigger and better we are convinced that we need to have, and we need to buy it right now. And it really begs the question, can we even really afford the advertised American lifestyle without burying ourselves in a bunch of debt and financial stress? Is there really any other way? And today we're going to be talking about it on today's show. Stay tuned.
Welcome to the Debt Free Dad podcast, where we're helping normal, everyday people learn how to save money and kick debt so they can live a happier and stress-free life. Now here's your host, Debt Free Dad, Brad Nelson.
Hey, everybody. You can find me on Facebook, Pinterest, YouTube, and Instagram. Just search Brad Nelson, Debt Free Dad, and welcome to today's show. So today we want to talk a little bit about this idea of this American lifestyle. I like to maybe think about it as hyper-consumerism, right? And just material possessions. And it really brings up the question of, can you really afford the lifestyle that's really being pushed in this day and age? And we're going to be talking about a few of these types of things today. But when I'm doing one-on-one coaching calls with individuals, it just seems to me that a lot of people are trying to keep up with a life that they really just can't afford. And they're scratching their heads wondering why they can't make it work. And I think a lot of that reason is because, you know, we're seeing all these messages out on, you know, TV and social media and conversations with your social circle, like your friends and your family. And, you know, you're looking at all of these things and you're wondering, like, and some of them maybe look like they've made it and they're doing really, really well. And you might be thinking, well, how the heck are they able to do stuff like that, but we aren't? And what do a lot of us do? We resort to debt and financing to afford a life that we necessarily can't afford to live. And we wanted to take some time on today's show and really kind of talk about this topic, because I think if you get yourself trapped in this type of a mindset, I think it can be detrimental to your mental health and also obviously your financial health. And it's what's really causing a lot of the financial stress out there, I think, right now.
This hits home for me because I was one of those people. You said the kind of people, you look at people, they look like they kind of got it all, and we were those people. We went to Disney every year. We had nice cars. We had a nice house. We kind of just did everything and anything we wanted to do. And that's just that's at the time what we thought we wanted. We kind of just bought into that consumer lifestyle, just consume, buy. And from the outside, it looked very appealing, I'm sure, to people, and probably had a lot of the same questions. How are they able to do that? And I can tell you I was able to do it because we just charged and overspent and consolidated loans and did all sorts of stuff in order for us to be able to keep that front, to be able to show people that, yeah, we can afford this. And yeah, we could make the payments, but it was a lot of stress and a lot of headache and a lot of frustration and arguments and not fun to have all that stuff, So I've lived that life. So we know now when we look at people and we see, when we have friends, how can people have that? We don't say it, but we know. We look at each other, my wife and I, we talk. We know how they can do it. Not everybody. I mean, some people can afford it. And if you can afford it, you should enjoy it. That's not what we're saying. But for the vast majority of people, we know how people are doing it. I mean, housing's crazy here. We've talked about it a bunch of times about moving, and things are just nuts. I mean, $400,000 or $500,000 for these houses now. And I mean, I know how people are doing it because they're selling like crazy, but that's what I think, kind of like you said, it's a consumer. I think we're a consumer-based economy in America, especially. It's all about consuming to keep the economy going, and I think that's the marketing. It's all about buying.
I tell you, I always got asked all the time. I'm like, oh, you're going on another vacation? Well, I was always going on vacation. And I'm like, yeah, doesn't everybody, come on. But it was all charged. It was always charged on the credit card. And then I have to come home and try and pay it off before the next one.
Yeah. And I think that's the key thing that we got to look at, is that people need to realize that looking good when it comes to material possessions does not mean success. And we've grown into a culture that connects success to stuff because stuff means money. Well, it doesn't anymore. It doesn't. It never has, I don't think. It's just that we've grown into that. Like, you see these on commercials, especially like around like Christmas and car buying season. You'll see like, the one neighbor will have a brand new vehicle and the other one will come home and brag about their awesome stuff that they got at the store on sale. And then they'll pan over to the neighbor and be like, oh, look at his brand new vehicle. And the other guy will look really upset about his stuff and his old vehicle, right, that's sitting in the driveway. And these are the messages that we are just being inundated with day in and day out. And we're constantly seeing that having the latest and greatest, the best, the shiniest, the newest, the one with the most features, even if it's the one that's just the most expensive, it means that we're something. We identify that, and it ultimately makes us a better person or our lives more ideal. and I think you're right, Ryan. You said it's a lot of stress, and I work with a lot of people who are trying to maintain that life, and it is just stressing them out. And they have a deep-rooted fear of being found out. And they do a lot of stuff to hide it. And I know this because I used to be one of those people. I never wanted people to know that, yes, I had a brand new house and brand new cars. And I mean, looking back, though, we still didn't look like we made it. It's like, God, what a fake life I was living, But seriously, my worst fear was being found out as a fraud. Like, oh, like, you're really not successful. You just have a crap ton of debt, dude. And that's what I was found out when I lost that house. And it's very, very stressful. And the thing we got to understand about this marketing is that if you listen into marketing in popular society, you are going to constantly be feeling left empty, feeling inadequate, and even more stressed out about your financial life and your life in general, just because it's never going to be enough. And if you're constantly putting yourself in those messages, you're always going to be trying to play catch up. You're always going to be trying to keep up with everybody else. And in our finances, we just can't afford it. The typical income can just not afford everything that's being advertised out there. And there's a lot of people trying to do it, and it's just breaking their banks.
We've realized too, and I think, when we talk about afford, I think what we've learned is you might be able to afford it from a dollar standpoint, and you might be able to just make your payments every month so you can quote unquote afford it. But can you afford the stress and all the baggage that comes with those payments? And there's a cost that's not associated with dollars when you do this. And that cost to us was just taking my kids to Disney and then having them hear us stress about how we're going to have to pay that off when we get home, so there's a large cost associated with, when you talk about afford, are you willing to sacrifice the feeling of driving that car off the lot for 6 years of payments and arguments because you shouldn't have bought the car to begin with? Because that's the true cost of what you're doing. Because that feeling, the biggest thing I learned is everything I bought wore off, and then I had to go find the next thing to buy because that feeling of, yes, I love this truck, wore off, and now it's like, now I want this, and then that wears off, and then you want this. I was never satisfied.
Right. So what would you guys say to this? Because I'll get this pushback because I agree. I think there's definitely those secondary costs. We talked about that. There's opportunity costs, and I think a lot of those are from the emotional side. But what would you say to someone who's like, well, I only live once. I want to enjoy. I want to enjoy everything I can right now, even if it means that I put myself and my family deep into debt. I want to enjoy it. I deserve it because I work hard. What would you guys say? I mean, because obviously we probably all use those same excuses back in the day. What would you say to those people?
We all deserve the life that we want, but I think what I would say is is all these things that you want really what you want, or is it what you want because it's what you want others to think of you? And I think that's been through our debt journey. That's the biggest thing I've learned through all of this is all the things I acquired was for other people's opinions. Like buying the big house, it was nice. I didn't grow up in a big house like that. I was perfectly happy as a kid. We moved to a much smaller house almost 7 years ago. My kids are perfectly happy. They're not, you're not running around with their heads down like, I wish we lived in the big house still, you know? So for me, I think that's what I would tell someone is, yes, you deserve things, but what do you really do you really want that? Is it something you truly want? Because I think most of our wants are marketed. You know, we're led to believe this American lifestyle has been marketed to us so much that I don't even think we really know what we want.
Yeah.
We just buy things because we think that's what's going to make us happy.
Yep. And I have a real challenge with that word deserve, because ultimately at the end of the day, what do we really deserve? We're only saying we deserve it because it's marketed to us. Because if that thing didn't exist along with that marketing message and that advertising, we would say, oh, well, we don't deserve that because it never would have existed. You only think you deserve something because we're sold and advertised that idea and that marketing idea that you deserve it because of this. But ultimately, at the end of the day, what do you deserve? I think you only deserve things when you have put in the hard work, you've had the patience and the discipline to save up and pay cash. That's the only time that I could ever say that you would deserve something. But if you've got to go into debt and payments for something, you haven't. You are borrowing from your future self and your future by doing that. And you haven't earned it yet. So to say that I deserve a brand new truck with payments because I work hard is a BS excuse that you're selling yourself to buy something you can't afford. You only deserve it when you can pay cash for it. But I think, you know, we get this question, and we're kind of bouncing around in some of the things that we're going to be talking about here today. But, you know, I'll have people when we do coaching calls, and they'll say, Brad, you know, it just seems no matter how much money I make, it doesn't seem to be enough. And you're right, it's not going to be, because one of the coolest parts about living in one of the greatest countries, Canada or US, right, Amber? is seriously, there is so many cool things that you can buy. But it doesn't mean that you have the resources to buy them. And I think you need to come to the realization that you only have so much money that you can spend. You can't live a life that you can't afford and expect to have success. It's just not going to work that way. And you think about things like the marketing we're talking about, and even the social influence. And I think even social influence is even more powerful. In fact, I was just talking to an individual earlier today through Facebook Messenger. It's a member of ours. And they were asking if it was a good time for them to buy a house, because they had a couple of people in their friends that were saying it's a good time to buy. I should be buying a house. And now what are they doing? They're looking into it. Well, it's the same thing with a lot of other purchases that we find, right? So, you know, that's that social influence. Well, if you're hanging out with a bunch of people that aren't paying attention to their finances, it's likely that you're not going to pay attention to your finances. If you're living with people, like Ryan said, who could afford it, who can live that lifestyle, but yet you're surrounded by them all the time and you're seeing what they're spending their money on, and you don't make the kind of money that they have, you are going to try to keep up. In fact, Ryan, you shared a statistic. I don't know if you have the book, or we were talking about houses, and like when you live and work in or live in a wealthier neighborhood or a neighborhood with bigger houses, you're likely to try to keep up with the lifestyle of your neighbors because you're just surrounded. You're in that environment, right?
Yeah, there's a book. It's called Stop Acting Rich. Maybe afterward we'll put the author in the show notes. I don't remember off the top of my head. But that was one of the things in his book he says, and it really clicked with me because when I think of like where we lived at the last house and even the house before, when you're looking for a home, they say one of the big factors you should also consider is what sort of neighborhood are you buying into? Because if you're buying into kind of like an affluent neighborhood, even if you can afford it, you're likely to spend more money in those sort of neighborhoods because all of the people around you are spending money. So even if you go into it saying, I'm not going to, there's a high likelihood that being surrounded by those types of people will make you more apt to like, hey, we should buy a new car, or hey, we should, do these things because all these other people around you are doing that.
What will people think of us? Oh, the horror, right? Seriously, I know we joke around about it, but seriously, just that thought of what other people are going to think about you. We're going to talk about that one here coming up. But just that thought alone, I can't tell you how many people get themselves in really bad spots just to fit in. It's crazy. All right, good stuff, guys. We're going to come back here after the break and finish up the show with a couple more points. Stay tuned. Hey, imagine a life without payments and debt. I'm telling you, it's possible. Now, I recently launched an incredible free workshop that will walk you through the first steps to reaching a stress-free and debt-free life. Now, the information that we're sharing inside this workshop has helped people save and pay off millions of dollars. And we've had thousands of people now register for this workshop. Now, I was broke at one time too, but by following a simple process, I paid off all of my debts and I now live completely debt-free. And getting out of debt, it's not an easy road. This is hard work. So I know also what works and what doesn't work. And that's why we created this fantastic success path that's removing all of the confusion. And it's helping ordinary people have massive results. And I just want to share our success path with you in this workshop. Now, the goal of the workshop is really simple. We want to help you reduce stress. We want to provide you immediate and clear direction, also give you some really helpful insights, and give you some really cool tips to help you discover some of the first steps, some of the first things that you should work on as you get on the road to financial freedom. So head on over to therealdebtfreedad.com, click on Tools and Courses in the menu, and get free access to this course today. Hey guys, welcome back to the show. Today we are talking about if you can really afford the advertised lifestyle that we see in day-to-day marketing. And our firm belief is no, you can't. Most people are not able to. And unfortunately, that's what's putting people into a lot of debt and a lot of financial stress. So the last part of the show here today, I want to talk about a few things that hopefully might help break this mindset of trying to say, use the old saying of keeping up with the Joneses. And you have to come to terms with the fact that you can't have it all, but you can have what matters to you. And I think, Ryan, you kind of hit it on it. You said, with marketing, I think we're spending money on a bunch of stuff that really isn't important to us. We're just doing it because that's what's advertised to us. And you're absolutely right. If you lack short-term and long-term financial goals, you are going to have your wallet and your bank account and even go into debt for a bunch of stuff that isn't going to benefit you in your life. You just think it does because they're selling you that idea that it does. So I think it's important to really think about what matters to you. Like, what do you really want? What are the most important things that you want to have in your life? And I think once you get really detailed and really specific on what that looks like, it's a heck of a lot easier to say no to a bunch of other stuff. Right now I drive a 2002 Chevy Silverado. It's got some rust on it. It is not the fanciest truck. And trust me, there are times when I'm at the campground and I see these big, nice new trucks come in and man, they got all the cool stuff on them. Yeah, there are days where it's like, it would be really nice to have a truck like that. But at the same time, I understand that by going into debt for something like that, it takes away a piece of my freedom. And then I look at that '02 Silverado and I'm like, I love you because you let me do whatever I want to do and I have no payments, right? So I can make different decisions than most people can. So, but you got to decide that what's right for you. You got to decide what are the things that you want to have in your life to help you build the life that you want to live. And until you do, it's going to be a constant struggle. You've got to get those short-term and long-term goals laid out.
And it's important, I think, too, to not let people try and influence you. Not so much what they have, but I mean, I've had people in my life that have said, oh my gosh, Amber, your car is so old. Like, like it's a 2010. It's not that old. But they're like, oh, you should probably look at, and it got in my head and I'm thinking now, oh my gosh, maybe I should start. And I started looking for a car. And then I sat down with my husband. I'm like, do I need one? Like, can we make this one last a while? And he's like, yeah, okay. And I just kind of rechecked myself because I didn't need a new car. Who is that person to tell me my car's too old?
Yeah, it's funny how that works, isn't it? We're the same, and we've looked at houses. We like to look at houses, it's a hobby of ours, but it's the same thing. We get kind of that feedback, not necessarily feedback, but kind of just like it would be nice to have, or, you see what other people have and you get around people talking about it. It's why I don't like watching home shows on TV. My wife loves watching that, but if I watch it, it's like, okay, let's go buy a house. Because it makes you want stuff. And we do the same thing, Amber. We check ourselves, we sit down and we go, okay, if we were to do that, what does that look like? What is that going to cost us? Not monetarily, but what are we giving up to have something like that?
Yep.
Definitely.
So true. And it all it takes is just one little thing. We had up at camp where we're at, one of the people that stay up there, they just bought a brand new, like this beautiful camper. Seriously, probably a $70,000 camper. And the people next to us, they have an older camper, and they were an older couple. And I was asking her, I was like, did you go over to see the new camper? Because they were giving tours of it, of course, right? And she's like, yep. And now I have camper envy. She's like, I go in that one, and I'm just like, this thing is just beautiful. It's amazing. It's got everything we want. And then what does she do? She's like, and then we come back to this, right? And that's all it takes. That's all it takes is just something like that to put those little ideas in your head. So yes, checking yourself, being able to sit down and make sure that, is this really what we want to do? And is this really going to help us reach our goals? That's so important. The other one is like Amber was just talking about with the car, and we've been talking about pretty much for this whole show, is that you've got to get comfortable with not caring about what people think of you. And it's easy to say. A lot of people say it. I don't care what people think of me. Well, yeah, you do. A lot of people say that, right? A lot of people say that you care. I mean, there's still I care what people think about me. I care what people think about my business and our podcast. And yeah, I mean, I care. But when it comes to my finances, I really, really don't care. And it didn't happen overnight. Even I would say even when we reached debt freedom, I would still say that we were justifying to other people why we were doing what we did. Now I've gotten to the point 6 years later, almost 7 years later now since we've reached financial freedom, that I don't feel the need to have to justify my 2002 Chevy Silverado or my 2005 Ford Explorer or anything that we do or how we live our life. It just, I don't feel the need to have to explain myself anymore because we have truly gotten comfortable with what we're doing, why we're doing it, and where we're going. And really, nobody's opinion is going to change my mind. And I think there's no freer feeling when you get to that point with your finances, when you're not doing things to impress other people or to show off a purchase to somebody else. You're doing it for you and for your family and to reach your goals. Seriously, it is. You want to talk about stress-free living? That's awesome.
I will say that this podcast, we did the first episode December of last year, end of December, early January.
Yeah.
And it was my final not caring what people think about me. It was the way to share my story. We've had people that we know, friends, family, that have said, like, we had no idea. We had no idea that was going on. And because we were in the same boat as earlier we talked, we didn't want people to know. It's the last thing we wanted to know is for people to find out. But I really push myself to be part of this because I do think it's important. Because I think it's one of the major things that holds most people back is what everyone's going to think. And here's the deal. For the people who have all been out of debt, I know how you're affording it. So it's not going to be a shocker to me. Like you have safety in people who've been through it because we get it. You're not fooling me. I know how it happens. And I know how you're affording it. And I know inside the house it's miserable and you're unhappy. But I do think, like, if you get over this, it's going to just completely change the way you attack debt, the way you do everything. I mean, it took us a long time to do it. And once we really started to not care what people thought of us and move to a lesser house and do those things, it's really when things really accelerated for us.
Yep, I totally agree. That we're actually right now, this has nothing to do with it, but it kind of does. This past weekend, I had an opportunity to, meet up with some old friends, and we were kind of talking about all of this stuff, what everyone's doing now, and they asked me what I'm doing and shared, and I shared with them that we've camped almost 80 days this entire summer now, and that's over 2.5 months, almost 3 months that we've camped since camping season's open. They're like, how the heck did you do that? Well, we built a life around the things that we love to do. And they said, well, what about work? Well, I do work. We've just created a lifestyle that allows us to live that life and do the things that we want to do. And they were kind of dumbfounded by that. But that's how intentional we've become with our spending and what we're doing and why we're doing it. It's not for anybody else. I don't camp 80 plus days to impress anybody because camping's not that impressive, for one. but it's something that we love to do. And I think you've got to find that in your life. What do you love to do? Because there's a guy that I got to an opportunity to listen to speak. He's a financial professional. His name is Ramit Sethi. All right. And his book is I Will Teach You to Be Rich. It's pretty popular. He's got a pretty good following. But what I got from him was just this one little tidbit. Everything else, is kind of the same stuff that we teach and talk about on the show. But he had said, he's like, give advice that tells people this. He said, tell people that they can spend lavishly on what they love. But you got to also tell them they got to cut mercilessly on what they don't love. And I think that's what you got to get to when it comes to your finances. You've got to really figure it out. What do we love? What do we want? Where do we want to go? And focus only on those things. And if that's a pretty cool, sweet car, then yeah, that's great. But then you're going to cut back on a lot of other things in your life because those things aren't important to you. But they can't all be important or you're going to be in debt and a lot of financial stress. So those are our tips today. And to tell you the truth, yeah, you can't, most people cannot live the advertised American lifestyle. So we want to just ease your stress and just tell you, stop trying and just get really focused on what it is that you want. And you'll be surprised at how far you start to get and actually living a much happier and stress-free financial life.
Hey, what's this I see? I thought this was a party! Let's
All right, that means it's time for the celebrations of the show. And today we're kicking it off with Katie Hatfield. Ton of celebrations this week. Rebuilt my savings again. She's been using that emergency fund and having to rebuild it. Paid off my phone, paid off a credit card, made a significant donation to my church, and paid all of my September bills, including a double car payment. That is a huge month. Great job.
Shannon Thompson, next month's budget complete. It's getting easier, y'all.
Yeah, absolutely. Yep, month after month. Yeah, and she's been really pushing it. That's awesome. Good for her.
Jess Fraser, it was a challenging week, but I managed to put an additional $607 towards my credit cards.
Awesome. Way to go, Jess. Congratulations. Emily Wilkening, I finally got to my $1,000 emergency fund. Heck yeah, congratulations to you. She says it's been tight and uncomfortable, but I did it, and that's what it's all about. And that word uncomfortable, if you're feeling that, it means you're doing something, and that's great. Good job.
Lindsay Bolus paid an extra car payment and thinking of taking part of my emergency fund savings, $2,800, and applying another 2 car payments, $800, or putting it towards a credit card. August paid off $1,700 in debt for a total of $35,058.92 for the past year.
That is absolutely incredible. Congratulations to you, Lindsay. And as just a little kind of surprise, we're going to have Lindsay on. And again, $35,000. She's been in Roots for just a little over a year. $35,000 on a single income. That is incredible. Absolutely incredible. We're going to have her on. She's going to be sharing her story in a couple of upcoming episodes. So congratulations to all of you who are working so hard on living that stress-free and debt-free life. Hey, thanks for hanging out with us here today. We love your feedback, and it also helps us grow our YouTube show. So please give us a like or leave us some honest feedback here. We would love to connect with you. And if you want the latest from the show, be sure to hit that notification bell and subscribe to our channel. And oh, by the way, if you heard that commercial about our Life Without Payments free course, you can head over and find that at therealdebtfreedad.com. Just click on tools and courses, and you'll have access to all of our free tools right there. We'll see you guys on an upcoming show.